I'm here with my new ZZP coilovers, getting ready to put them on the Turbo Regal Bad Grandpa. Upon looking them over, when I first opened it up, I noticed the ride height adjustment is loose and ready to be set. Everything else looks awesome. Obviously brand new, they're clean. The pillow balls on the top, I'm actually going to throw a little bit of Rem oil gun lubricant basically on there. That's kind of something I learned from my days working on oval track cars, just to keep those hopefully lubricated a little longer for those fronts. And for the rears, everything seems kind of contained in there. Got the kit here. I'm gonna go by the recommended information on ZZP's setup video, and I'll probably compare them to the ride height on the factory struts and go from there. All right, to start with, we're gonna do this front shock. As soon as I crack this loose, basically any alignment it had is gone, but the car was due for new tires and an alignment anyway, so that's not a big deal. Now these studs are splined, so they probably won't rotate, but you never know. So that I'm not mushrooming in the end too bad. As you can see, a little bit there from somebody previously, whether it was me or someone else. Just protecting them with that. And then I can just kind of give them a little persuasion. Now they're out. I'll keep those right there. I'm going to disconnect the top. So you can see, as provided, definitely a big difference in height. It's looking like about 21 inches to the top, which obviously we're not doing a 4-inch drop. All right, so this should line up. I'm going to check side by side with the other front one to make sure. So as you can see, I've got a long way I can go to adjust. These are already a little over 2 1/8 in. You got a lot of adjustability here. I'm going to go to 20. We'll do a 1-inch drop. Let me just get it snug. So as we can see, we're about 1 inch lower. Weight is already a huge benefit here. All right, so for hardware, these are 14 mil, not 15 mil, so be careful with that. And they are not hardened, so do not over torque them, and be careful. I almost had an issue with cross threading and stripping the bolts. So when you're putting these in, make sure all 3 of them are up through, and then try to get them hand threaded on at least until the threads are all the way through the nut. If you're going through anything that's supporting a strut tower brace, especially the ones that go all the way around, you're going to want to probably have someone hold it up if you can, or bolt it to the knuckle first and hold it up. That way you are able to get all the way through. And I would almost suggest in the future possibly upgrading these to some hardened studs. We'll go look at the ones that came with it, but grade 8 or grade 10 hardware, or in metric 8.8, 10.9, things like that. I'm going to put a little anti-seize on here. And they say up north you can put anti-seize on these. I don't actually drive this car too much in the weather. That's the only reason it hasn't rotted on me like my GTP did. Now I've got the right front out and I've adjusted the ride height. I did it just based on this plate to the lower hole. When I go a little more accurate, I'm going to go right into the bottom of the body here. You see we're just over 4 1/4 inches up, which puts it with about that much grip still left. We'll see. If I like it looking a little bit lower, I'll actually drop it further down in and shrink it up a little bit, drop the ride height a little bit more, but I don't want to slam it right away. I want to make sure everything stays decently aligned. Not trying to make too drastic of a change just yet. And just for adjusting the fronts, as they said in the video, they're going +10 on the fronts. So everything was delivered starting all the way soft for point of reference, and I'm just going to go 10. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and I'll take these out, put them in the glove box, center console somewhere to hang on to them, since they would end up hitting against the hood if they were left in. Also note that for the torque specs on these, I believe it's 24 foot-pounds, and for the lowers it's 90, and you can double check your own manual for that. I've moved it up 1 inch so that now we are basically 3 1/4, and I'm gonna now rotate the body using the upper jam nuts to move the shock body. So before you turn these, when you go to install the shocks overall, you'll want to make sure they're tight. That way, as you can see, if I zoom in close, it'll turn the entire shock body. And now I can rotate it down in and soak up that extra height that I'm trying to get rid of here. So I'm going to turn that down until it gets to that 3 1/4 distance between them, and we'll see what that ends up like. Time to undo these rear struts. Ratchet wrenches are your friend for getting in here, especially if you end up doing a rear strut race. Now, as we move down here, we see we have the sway bar bracket and the lower knuckle. We're going to do the same thing. Just crack that loose and pull that out of the way. So I've got a 14 here. Seems to be what fits on the back of that. And a 15 on the outside. So another note, to get the strut out a little bit easier in the back, especially if you have a Regal or something with an inner fender liner, you're gonna want to get that out of the way. It's a bunch of little 10 mil stamped nuts against the inner body, maybe some 7 mil bolts and screws that are holding it to the front and rear edges. So after a quick comparison to see which side goes on the passenger side, or the right rear, obviously the sway bar link is connected, as you can see there, on the left, which is going to be this one. They go to the forward side of the car, so if it was mounted, it would look like this. Also, the other indicator, the tapered part near the bottom here, looking at it head on, you can see both of these are the same looking plate, but the taper will go to the inside of the car, to the center line of the car, and that wider part will go to the outside. So just like before, I'm gonna notionally set the ride height. You can see how far out I actually have this strut body, but most of the threads I've noticed are all the way up in the top. Looks like we're at a little over 4 1/8 out of a 6 7/8 body. All right, let's lock this down with the spanner wrench, and I'm gonna take those top mount nuts off and we'll put it back in the car, or for the first time actually. So as I mentioned, I pre-installed this little O-ring grommet and the adjuster screw because there's not going to be much room to pull it in and out up there. I also disconnected the strut tower brace. That's the Don Rome bracket. So for the rear strut, the way it actually sits naturally is closest to how a normal strut is mounted. It's about 2 3/8 from the center line. The lower one is not slotted. This one is slotted for camber adjustments. So I'm going to try it where it is now. It actually sits there comfortably with no stress on it yet. All right, the right rear is all set. Wheel well's back in there. I want to check real quick with some digital calipers. Okay, we're seeing about 4.143. That's a little over 1/8. It's about what I recall, so a little more accurate than the tape measure, but we're going to be in the ballpark if we set the other one up with the same amount. So let's go do the left rear. All right, I set this one up. 4.19 there. About 4.16. Happy with that. Depending on how these boots move around under load, I may put zip ties on them later on to hold down here at the body. That's the part that's needing to stay cleaner since it's moving in and out of the shock body more than the upper part of it is. Left rear is in. We are all buttoned up, torqued down. All right, coilovers are in. It is on the ground. It is now time to back it out, give it a wash, look it over, and start checking things over, get the tires aired up. We'll go for a slow cruise around the neighborhood and just shake down the car so that we can get it ready to go to the alignment shop, probably get some fresh tires.